It's so weird calling Hades 2 an early access game because so far, almost everything about it feels complete. I'm never a guy that buys these early access titles, but I mean the second this one dropped, I knew I had to try it out. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing what I've played so far in Hades 2 early access. Keep in mind that the game is not fully out yet and is being patched. Supposedly, it should be coming out next year, but is this one worth buying now and experiencing, or should you wait on the full final release? When it comes down to it, I'm not a roguelike kind of gamer at all. I honestly couldn't even finish that game Returnal on PS5 because I wasn't good enough, yet somehow I've played and beaten all of the Souls games from FromSoft. I heard amazing things about Hades to a point I think where IGN even gave it their Game of the Year, so I had to try this one out, and honestly I really just wasn't let down. The first Hades game isn't really required to understand the story in this one, but it's an awesome game and I really think you should play it. Hades 2 is a continuation of the first one without feeling too copy-paste. It's got its own identity, but it also keeps what makes Hades 1 awesome. I want to start with the gameplay for anyone that's new to roguelike type of games. It'll give me a chance to explain what makes the first Hades so special coming from someone like me who's not really into stuff like this. Roguelike games reward death, just like the Souls games. Your sessions that you play are actually called runs, and it's rewarding survival as well as your decision making. There's a bit of RNG, but I mean that's something that I'll touch on in a sec. In a nutshell, you're going room to room, clearing out enemies. Once you've killed all the enemies, you get a reward that makes you stronger, either giving you an ability, some kind of power, an effect, health, mana, anything really. Then you have to decide between two other rooms that have symbols showing above, basically showing what kind of reward you're expected to get. This is a little bit of RNG, especially, the rewards that the gods will be giving you. To explain what that is, Hades is offering something called boons, and these are from gods that can help adjust your weapons, your abilities. They even give your attacks effects like freeze, electricity, sometimes, fire. It makes you more and more powerful as you clear the rooms collecting boons. The catch here, though, is that once you die, you start all over from the beginning. The benefit to death is being able to progress the story, which is something I really like about this type of game. And on top of that, you're also able to power up and make that next run easier. So for anyone who hasn't played the original, again, this one is similar but also different. One, you're not controlling Zagreus, the main character of the first game. Instead, you control his sister, Melanoe, and she controls a little different but also kind of similar. This is honestly a really big theme in this game. It's similar enough to where fans of the first are going to like it, but I think it's also different enough to feel fresh. Melanoe has a sprint which can get cool effects from the boons like explosions. Sometimes you could run by enemies and light their projectiles on fire. You could charge your attacks up and have omega variants. These end up using the mana, which is a whole different system that they've added, and these actually change up based on the weapon that you're using. Some are going to shoot large attacks that go in both directions, or even spikes that have AoE spreads. You've got a primary attack and a ranged attack. There's also a cast that she could put down to crowd control enemies and deal a lot more damage to whoever's in it and freeze them. Melanoe is mainly more of, I would say, a mage type. Her focus is a lot more magic attacks and range versus the actual berserking, damage dealing that I would say her brother was in the first game. This helps, I think, Hades 2 feel fresh and different. There are some weapons that help you go, full berserker, let's say, like the axe once you unlock that one. But I really felt a lot more at home, playing by range. Her Omega attacks, again, have this mana charge, and you'll be able to replenish this one with whatever Arcana cards you have, boons. Sometimes, you can find it, and then, there's outfits that you could find in the game as well. They'll give you some bonuses. So there's a lot of ways to, keep replenishing this mana because those attacks are really, really powerful. Room to room, the game feels just as good as the first, even though it's in that early access stage. The gameplay feels a little different since, she is more of a caster, but I love it because it doesn't feel like I'm playing the first game again, just like a really good sequel. The great thing about Hades here is that, the gameplay is just top tier. I think, in my opinion, this franchise alone has just mastered the way roguelike games work. They've really just figured out the gameplay loop. The boons that you get from the gods, the weapon variety, even just like the expansion of the story, it all keeps the runs feeling fresh and not repetitive. It gets really, really addicting, and you're really just like playing one more run just to see what else can happen. A lot of stuff does happen on screen, though, that makes it a little difficult to not take damage and die. You do learn from your mistakes, but sometimes there's just so much going on, you're not even realizing that you're getting hit. And you suck it up and you just go again. That's the beauty of this type of game. I think the bosses are also a really, really cool shining point in this game. My favorite so far is Scylla and her band of sirens. You're going to be hearing a song when you make it to the depths, and eventually you'll find them. What's cool here is that the song is playing, while you're actually fighting them. And the more you hurt, let's say, the drummer or the guitarist, it actually turns off that part of the song. So it just, the effect here changes as depending on who you're hurting. The game also keeps that unique charm that I think the first one had with all of its characters. I mean, overall, it's just like a fun time. Speaking of the first boss, story is really just another area that I think the game has improved on based on the first. This time the stakes seem a lot higher. So you are playing Melanoe, who's the daughter of Hades, Zagreus' sister, and you're basically trying to take down the Titan of Time, Kronos, who took your family prisoner. So as you're trying to take out Kronos and going deeper and deeper, things are just getting a little more complicated as you continue. You're aided by a witch named Hecate, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but she's technically training you. And your hub world this time is a little bit more of a hideout for the gods. There's even a giant cauldron there for you to brew spells since you're a witch. And I mean, in your runs, you're going to be finding materials that you can combine and create bonuses, hot springs, or things that'll help you during your runs. Other materials can actually be used to unlock new weapons, and you can power up Melanoe through an Arcana card system. You've got a psych limit, which lets you have a certain amount of cards available, but you could find materials and upgrade that so you could have more and more activated. You're also able to unlock cards here, and when you do unlock one, you get to see what's nearby. So there's always kind of like a feeling of discovering something new as you unlock stuff. Here's where you could tailor Melanoe to your playstyle. On top of finding materials, you're also able to plant and harvest them, sell them if you need to. There's this prophecy paper thing that you'll unlock that kind of guides you on what to do and gives you rewards, but honestly, I rarely check this and I just unlock things naturally as I was playing. Overall, the game is honestly just as addicting and as rewarding as the first game. I think the story is interesting, even though the ending so far is missing since it's early access. I do like what they did here with the higher stakes, and what I love about this series is that as you play, whether you die or not, the story is slowly unraveling as you play, whether you pass or fail. The art style is just as good as the first, if not graphically. I think it's a little better. It seems a little more crisp, a lot more vibrant than the other game, but you know, due to the way it's kind of just like made, I don't think it can get any better than this. The voice acting is awesome and memorable, just like the first game, and I think the music is amazing. Like I said earlier, Scylla and that whole sequence of fighting the her sirens and taking out the guitarist and, you know, hearing the guitars turn off in the song, it's awesome. It's really hard to feel like this is an early access title, even though we've already had patches that have adjusted things. So for the main question of the video, should you buy this one right now or wait? I really just bought this one immediately because I'm a huge fan of the first game, and I mean, no matter what, whatever the patches are, what happens during full release, I'm gonna be jumping back in to see what changed. Honestly, if you're someone who gets burnt out on games really fast, it probably doesn't make sense to play this one, and I would probably avoid it until the full release. To give kind of some perspective on that, I really wanted Baldur's Gate 3 in early access, but I didn't buy it, and I waited till that full release and got to experience it fresh. Amazing game, 10 out of 10, game of the year. One of the best games ever made, by the way. But I think if you're a huge fan of this series and you've been itching for kind of like a sequel, the way this one works, I mean, it's a really good game to just pick up and play, being like the whole roguelike thing. If you're a huge fan, it's an immediate buy. I think it's worth every penny, even though it's in early access. I mean, it really does feel like a full release, and besides whatever tweaks they're making, you know, unlocking a little bit of the story, maybe a new area to explore, and some of the tuning, I think it's really hard for me to picture how much this one is going to change from early access to full release. Either way though, I think if they change a lot, I'm going to be there to play it because Hades 2 proves that this formula, this whole roguelike thing they figured out, it just works. The game is an amazing successor, I think, to the original, keeping and tweaking what we loved about the first game. And I think if you're someone who's never played a roguelike game, I think you should definitely just check out Hades 1 to begin with. And I mean, if you like it, you don't think you're going to get burnt out on it, go ahead and get the second one. Like I said, it doesn't feel like an early access title, and it's really just so much fun to just hop on and play. I really don't see myself getting tired of this one before full release, and if I had to come out and suggest it, I think like 80% of people should go out and just buy this one now and play it. I'm not going to give it a full score just because it's not out yet, but I mean, I think I've glazed it enough and said enough good things. It's a blast, especially for that low asking price. If you haven't played the first also, again, go back, play that one too. So that's it for my thoughts on Hades 2 so far. I think the game is a great time, easy to pick up and play, especially I think if you have a Steam Deck. I didn't mention that one. If you've got any of those like portable devices, it is made for this thing. If you made it this far, help out the channel, interact with it, drop a like, comment, anything helps us. And if you like game reviews, news, previews, even tips, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another video. And I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks, guys.